So we're in Joshua 1. The Israelites are at the Jordan River. They're getting ready to cross into the Promised Land. Moses is gone. He's died. Joshua has taken over. I think the first thing we can see from that is that even without Moses, God's plan carries on. God doesn't have to change his plan. He's not thrown off by Moses not being there. And I think that can keep us all very humble when we think about if God doesn't need Moses, there's really no one that God depends upon to accomplish his plans. Moses is probably one of the most important humans in all the Bible, and God carries on just as he planned without him. And so if I ever get too full of myself, I can always remember that God can do what he wants to do without me. But that's also encouraging because I know that God's plans aren't dependent upon me. So if I see things that I'm involved in that I know are much bigger than me, that's good to know that God's plans are going to go forward because he's the one that's doing it, just like here in this section of Joshua and in this stage of Israel's history. So when Moses begins to speak to Joshua, what he tells him, be strong and courageous. He says that 3 times. He says it in verses 6, 7, and 9. And then at the end of the chapter, the people say, we need to be strong and courageous. So that those 2 words are used over and over again. And I think it's good for us. First thing to think about is that God tells Joshua that because they need to be strong and courageous. There's going to come opportunities for them to be afraid, to quit, to give up. They're going to need strength. They're going to need courage. Like the challenges that they're going to face are going to be strong enough that they will need that strength and courage. God is the one that's going to do the work, and he is going to bring them into the land, but they're not going to just sit and do nothing, so to speak. They have to have that strength and that courage to go forward. And so then we think, well, when God tells him to be strong and courageous, what does that mean exactly, or what does he need to do? The first thing we might think is that Joshua might need to go learn military tactics or learn how to fight with weapons because they're going to go in and they're going to have to fight battles, and he needs to learn how to lead an army well. But that's not what God tells Joshua at all. He tells him to remember the law that I gave Moses, learn that, observe that, and that's what you need to do. That is all he's told to do. He doesn't have to learn anything else or do anything else. He's just told, remember that law, observe it, don't turn away from it to the left or the right. And if you do that, then everything's going to be good. And so that's really the instruction that he gives. That's where the strength and the courage come from, because again, God is the one who is going to actually conquer the people in there. They're not going to conquer the people on their own strength. They're not going to conquer the people by just outsmarting them in some way. It's going to happen because of God's power. So the people just need to be obedient to what God has told them. And likewise for us, we think about what we're called to do. We're called to make disciples. We're called to be more like Jesus, to live like Jesus has taught us to live. We need to be strong and courageous as well, because just as the people getting ready to cross into Israel or into the Promised Land, will have opportunities to give up, opportunities where we're going to need to be courageous and strong. So it's important for us to have the same mindset that what we're called to do is based on God's power, but there's also a place where we need to be strong and courageous as well. And likewise, just as the people here, the same instruction would be for us. Follow the way, the teaching that Jesus taught us to live. That's what we need. That's where we're going to get the strength and the courage, because we don't make disciples on our own power. We don't become like Jesus in our own power. All we're told to do is put our faith in Jesus and then observe the things that he's taught us to do. So just like the people of Israel here, we're facing our life and what we're called to do by God's power. He's going to do it, and all we really need to do is to trust Jesus and just live as he taught us to live.